ES Audio.
The Evening Standard Rugby Podcast with Lawrence Dallaglio, supported by Fuller's London Pride, official beer of Premiership Rugby. Support with Preez.
Hello, I'm Lawrence Dallaglio. Welcome to the Evening Standard Rugby Podcast, supported by Fuller's London Pride. As always, I'm joined by the lovely Sarra in her pink.
It's a bit neon, isn't it, today? I was running out of ideas. Don't usually wear neon. I feel like I'm going back to the 80s.
It looks lovely. And from the Evening Standard, it's Steve Corning. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Lawrence. Unfortunately, I'm in grey, aren't I? So I look completely the wrong colour choice.
And our guest this week is Sale Sharks fly half, Rob Dupree. Hey, Rob.
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for having me. I'm in grey too, matching the Manchester weather at the moment. To be fair.
Is it bad up there as well, is it?
Yeah. It stayed dry for the game yesterday, which was good, but it was raining the whole morning.
Well, Lawrence, don't believe this, but I was actually born in Manchester, and I do know that it rains a lot.
Way more than Durban, South Africa.
Yes, that's something you had to get used to. Okay, gents, we're going to get on to the weekend's action in a little bit. But first of all, let's just have a quick check-in with what you've been up to this week. Steve, you're in a different setting this week. Are you not in your office?
Yes, I've come back to the place that I grew up, down in Devon, Kingsbridge. Have to give a big shout-out to the Welcome Stranger, where 9 of us went for Sunday roast yesterday. So nice to get away for half-term and, come see my parents.
Good. And Rob, not the result you wanted against Quins at the weekend, and we will come on to that a little bit later. But you're on a day off now. So what does a day off for Rob Dupree look like? What do you do? What do you get up to?
I've got a 6-month-old now, so that keeps me busy. And then we'll take the dog out for a walk, myself and my wife, when the weather permits.
Nice. Are you hands-on? Are you changing nappies? Are you up early hours in the morning?
I change nappies. I don't wake up at night. My wife does that. She's brilliant with that, to be fair. But I try and be as hands-on as possible. Obviously, it's quite tough being away most of the day, but my wife's a champ.
Good, that's the right thing to say. Well done you. Lawrence, what have you been up to since last week?
Just listening to Rob there reminded me of when my wife used to say, "Are we good for a walk today?" I was saying, "Yeah, just have my face smashed in. I can barely walk." I think going for a dog walk's a really good idea. I was at London Irish on Friday night, cracking little stadium, and actually a very good game against Gloucester, despite the rain. And then I came up to Manchester. Rail strikes on Saturday. Don't think the train drivers have worked out that no one's listening at the moment because there's so much chaos going on in this country that they can't cut across any news at the minute. But I got up to Manchester, stayed the night and, watched the game. It was great to be back at the AJ Bell. Thought I'd go up and see Sale win, but we'll talk about that later.
We will. So we put some questions to Rob first.
Don't forget, you can also watch the full extended video podcast at londonpridebeer.co.uk. Please drink responsibly.
Rob, obviously Quins brought your winning run to an end. I think it's been widely documented. It was a great start to the season. It definitely feels like there's something a little bit different going on up at Sale. Alex has been there a little while. He would have made a few tweaks and changes. You've waved goodbye to a few South African friends. No Faf de Klerk now. And you've always been very consistent. Good defence, good solid work rate, all the things that we know about. But it does seem to be something a little bit different going on there in terms of the way you're playing. What does it feel like to you?
At the moment, I think the big thing was just getting the balance right. I think a year or two ago, probably a lot more kicking, a lot more set piece, very forward orientated game. I think at the moment, we just got the balance right between running, kicking and passing and when to play, when not to play. And I think we've seen in the first 5 games, I think we got 4 out of the 5 were bonus point games. So just kind of our attacks now come to the fore. George has been really good with that. I think he spoke after our Connacht game. That was quite a boring game, not the best game in the world. And he just said, listen, we're demanding a lot of our forwards. We want them to maul, want them to scrum, want them to do this. But us as backs need to step up a little bit. And I think we've done that, to be fair.
And I think that winning run has coincided with you playing by half a lot more. I mean, I can say it, but now Faf's gone, you probably get a little bit more ball as well. Less kicking, more ball. But I just think, it's quite interesting because we were chatting to Austin, which is always a bit of a dangerous thing to do on air yesterday. And he was saying that since you came to Sale, you moved around a bit. You played at 13, you played all over the place. I mean, for any rugby player to be picked in one position, fly half, which is probably the one you actually like playing the most, and staying in that position, is that something that you feel has really helped you a little bit more? I mean, you'll do whatever you can for the team, but playing in one position is good for you, right?
Yeah, I think that's ideal. If you can get some continuity in one position, obviously you feel a lot more comfortable in that position. But like you said, I think whether I'm at 13 or 10 or 12, to me, it doesn't really matter. I just want to be in the team first off and try and do my bit to help.
Sarra's got quite a rugby household as well, because obviously, I was just wondering from your perspective, it's the same. I mean, Sarra, can you imagine having all these young boys and girls all playing rugby?
No, I've got a daughter and a son, and having the son play rugby with my husband and my father is more than enough for me at home. But growing up in a house full of rugby players, you play with your brothers now, of course. What was that like? Was it a bit manic?
Not really. I don't know. Like, my brothers are bullies. Always bullied me. You can see what they do on the field. You can imagine what they used to do to me. But it was always rugby. Like, my dad played rugby when he was younger. Played for the Boks and for the Bulls and Sharks. So I guess it was always kind of meant to be. It was never forced upon us ever. But we just took to it, really. I think my brothers took to it a bit earlier than I did. I remember my first memory of playing rugby I think I was like 6 years old. And I went on, it was a club game, and I hurt my finger. I went crying off to my mom and said, "Mom, I need an ice cream. Can I have an ice cream, please?" And that was my first kind of memory of rugby. And then didn't play for a year or two, and then my brothers played, and then I got back into it kind of thing. So, but it's always been there.
Were you all always very good, or kind of were you kind of late bloomers? Were you late developers, or was it always like, oh, the Preez brothers come in, they're massive, they're very good? How do it work?
I'd say more so my brothers and myself. They were standouts in their school years. I was a bit later. Only kind of signed my professional contract late in my last year of school, where they would have signed probably in the second to last year of school. So I was going to go study and hopefully play some university rugby and whatnot. But then a contract came through, and then only kind of broke into the senior mix when I was about 23-ish. And then I was like a fully fledged kind of senior player. They probably played around like when they were 19, straight out of school, they were playing with the seniors already.
Do you guys all stay? I'm intrigued because obviously you got 3 sets of brothers at Sale. When you are together, you're on the team bus or you're eating. Do you guys all sit together? I mean, twins are hard to keep apart at the best of times. I mean, how does it work? Or are you forced? Does Alex force you all to sit somewhere different?
No, it's not forced, but it is quite like separated. Like, everyone does their own thing. I sit with Jono and Sam James and Luke James, and we play cards. Dan sits on his own a lot of the time. He's quite recluse, quite quiet. JL will sit in the back and play PlayStation on the bus. So it's very mixed. There's no real cliques, I wouldn't say. Obviously, people do gravitate towards certain people. So the South Africans naturally will gravitate, but I wouldn't say it's an issue at all.
Come on, Rob. If you want to have a real bitch about someone, you get all the Afrikaans.
Get out here.
You get all the Afrikaans on the table and you have a little bitch about each other, don't you?
No, we don't. Honestly, we don't. We bitch and moan at each other, to be fair. We play FIFA and we give each other a lot of stick when whoever loses. There's Byron McGuigan, who's probably the most mouthy out of everyone.
We know there's obviously quite a big South African contingent playing professional rugby all over the world, which is not surprising, but quite a few of you have ended up at Sale. I mean, South Africans obviously love the sun. I mean, why have you all ended up in Manchester?
I think Faf was the main recruiter, Faf and Jono. So they were the first two to kind of come, and they would put people's names forward. I think Dimes was quite active in asking them who they think would fit in. But we definitely didn't come for the weather. Definitely not. Look, financial stability is a big thing too. We all know that the Prem pays a lot more than, well, not now so much. I think in South Africa, the money's really good too. So I think it's evened out. But back in the day, or a couple of years ago, the Prem was very high paying compared to South Africa. So that was a driver in a lot of the decision making, I'd say, and possibly hopefully getting a passport in 2 years, which is quite big for my family, for my little kid, that hopefully we have that option to stay should we want to.
Rob, just quickly, we noticed, obviously everyone has, that there's a couple of South African teams joining the European Cup, and pretty soon. What do you think they'll bring to to the competition? We obviously see it in the URC a little bit more, but other than a bit more banter out on the field for the likes of yourselves and the rest of us.
Yeah, I think it makes it interesting. One, we get to travel to South Africa, and that's quite cool. I think something different, something new. I think you've got obviously Stormers who play this unbelievable style of rugby. You get Sharks and Bulls who are probably quite more forward based. I mean, if you look at their packs, they've got outstanding packs. They're just going to add to the mix with their competitiveness. It's going to make it even more competitive. I think a lot of these French teams with their big packs, it'll be interesting to see how a team like Sharks goes against them with their massive pack too. So it is going to be interesting. I was hoping to have one of them in our pool so we could travel back to SA, which would have been good, but it didn't end up that way.
The Evening Standard Rugby Podcast with Lawrence Dallaglio, supported by Fuller's London Pride, official beer of Premiership Rugby.
Okay, so listen, we're going to talk about the weekend's rugby now. Only 4 games to cover this weekend, for reasons that we all know about, of course, but they were cracking games. So, Lawrence, let's start on Friday night. London Irish, they hosted Gloucester. The Exiles were 18-12 up, I think, at half-time, but then Gloucester came back in the second half, and it was that incredible drop goal by Adam Hastings which sealed their fate. You just said you were at the game. What did you make of it?
Well, Gloucester are a work in progress. I think they'd always say that. London Irish, for weird reasons, Worcester-Wasp situation, maybe a bye week, they're a bit distorted in terms of their table position. I mean, when you play London Irish, you're never quite sure that you can put them away. They've got this ability to score so many points so quickly. Unfortunately, they've got the ability to concede a lot of points as well at the moment. They're a very exciting team to watch, but if you're a fan, you come there and you think to yourself, well, we can score, Hassel Collins, Loader, great players playing in top form at the moment, but they do seem to concede a bit too easily. And Gloucester have got this habit of making games go down to the wire at the moment. They obviously, managed to find a way to beat Bristol. They held on to beat Bath. They lost against Saracens, but the games are just so exciting. And we didn't know what was going to happen until, as you said, that Adam Hastings drop goal. I mean, obviously, I've actually dropped a goal in Premiership rugby, but against Leeds, because I broke my rib and Matt Dawson passed me the ball and I had no other option, and then I had to go hobbling off. But
did it go over?
It went over, but it was from about 10 yards. It wasn't from the...
Oh, okay. Well, quite clever then.
No, I wasn't that good. But it was an incredible drop goal. And, I mean, London Irish had a chance to win it at the death. Tom Pearson nearly set up, I think it was Hassel Collins for the winning try, but Gloucester probably deserved to win with that drop goal and just a little bit more forward power. So I think they're in a good place at the moment, Gloucester. It'll be interesting to see how they go this season.
And Steve, there was finally some good news at the Rec. Bath managed their first win of the season, beating Northampton Saints 27 points to 14. After 6 winless weeks, I can't imagine the relief this morning in Bath. The players and the fans must be delighted.
It must be complete. I mean, the thing is, we've had 3 prime ministers since they last won a game. Yeah. Just to be topical, but last season, obviously, it took them 10 to get their first win. This season, they've done it finally in 7. And I think the news as well that the Rec can now go ahead and be redeveloped, and you suddenly start to see some shoots there for some promise going forward. And again, I mean, they put in a complete 80-minute performance, didn't they? And I think that's what Johan van Graan said afterwards. That's what had been missing. They just needed to play from beginning to end, and they're starting to get those combinations, I think, now in various areas. I mean, Ollie Lawrence was brilliant again. Linking with Cam Redpath was really good. Tom Dunn he's scored 5 tries now, and he's just leading again, standing in as captain, doing really, really well. But I think for Saints, you look at their red zone efficiency, and I know that's what Phil Dowson was bemoaning at the end of the game. They were in there twice in the first half, didn't convert them. And I think that's been their Achilles heel. But I can certainly see Bath now turning that corner and starting to really, really put their foot down. They got some good players to come back as well who are out injured as well. So that's all positive for them.
Rob, Saracens, they took a trip to Sandy Park to face the Chiefs. They've not actually won there for 6 years, which is crazy. Frustrating first half for Sarries, but it's just the way they are, Rob, isn't it? They just never quite know when they're beaten. And, they showed a lot of grit, a lot of determination like they always do.
Yeah, I think that team's been together for ages now, and they just know how to win. They know how to come up with results from nowhere. I think they fall back onto their kind of game model that they've been doing for the last 10 years. They've added to that. They've also started to play some really good attacking rugby. And then Alex Good, I mean, the guy's unfathomable. He's like red wine. He just gets better and better.
There's something quite romantic about him getting that kick over Lawrence, wasn't there, at the end?
Yeah, it was. But you look at Exeter, and the game, again, went to the last play of the game virtually, and you got these kind of momentum swings emotionally. We saw Tony Ray on the sideline. I mean, they'd done everything Exeter, and all they had to do was win their own scramble. And Sam Simmons is desperately trying to get it out from under his feet and get it away, and then Saracens turned it over and then won the penalty. And it's a tough way to lose. But then again, Exeter won the opening game of the season with a try in the last minute against Leicester. Sometimes you get those results that go your way, and other times you don't.
The Evening Standard Rugby Podcast with Lawrence Dallaglio. Supported by Fuller's London Pride, official beer of Premiership Rugby.
Okay, on to Sunday's game then. A very physical match between Sale and Harlequins. Marcus Smith, he celebrated his 100th Premiership appearance by assisting Quinn to their first win in the AJ Bell since April 2015. I know you don't want to hear that, Rob, but I had to put it out there anyway. What conversations were taking place in the changing room after the game? Were there frustrations? Were there just disappointment? What was an overriding emotion?
Yeah, I think a bit of everything. Frustration, disappointment. I think if you look at our last 5 games leading up to this, it was quite an uncharacteristic game. In terms of our red zone efficiency, it wasn't great. We spilled a lot of ball offloads probably that we didn't need to do. And then just let them back in the game with silly penalties, really. And Marcus was brilliant. Controlled the game really well. I think kicked all his kicks on turnover, pinned us back. And that's what Quins do. Quins are so good on turnover attack. And again, Danny Kerr, another guy who's playing some brilliant rugby also.
Yeah, Rob, I mean, it's been the standards that you've set. And I spoke to Alex after the game and he said that just the game yesterday was nowhere near that. I mean, 15 handling errors, 15 penalties. That's 30 mistakes. And then you add that your line out and scrum was under pressure as well. I mean, it's just a bad day at the office, really, wasn't it, for you guys? And you got to look at it in the context that if you play six or 7 games, you're going to have one of those, aren't you? Yeah,
I guess so. And I think I said to John afterwards, I said, if you had asked me 6 games in, I'll give you 5 wins from 6. Would you take it? 100% I'd take that. So it's still a great start to the season. And it's just like a little blip on our journey, really.
A question I wanted to ask you, and please feel free to sort of answer it in the way that you want to, but when you've got a player as good as Manu in your team, I know that the stats sort of pushed the game in a certain direction, but you'd want to get him into the game as early as possible. I mean, I think about the games, like the international games that he scored after 34 seconds against the All Blacks in the semi-final. You know, if he was in my team, I'd be calling one of the first line-outs straight to him off the top, just if nothing else, just to have a little go at Marcus Smith. When he came off the field yesterday, it's great that he's fit. It's great that he's playing for long periods of time, and there's always a bit of nervousness around that. But I think he touched the ball about 5 times or 3 times and didn't really get that impact. Are you conscious that you've got a player like him outside you? And I don't know. I mean, I'd be calling at least the first couple of line-outs to him.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you got a guy like Manu, use him. I mean, if you look at Quins, they've got a guy like Andre and they use him. And you're right. Like if he gets those early touches, he's unstoppable, especially if they're good touches.
I suppose the answer is you just need your forwards to win the line out, though. I suppose
that's not my department.
I don't know. It's just, as you say, sometimes you've got to hold your hand up. I mean, Quins came up with a couple of pretty good plays, didn't they? And every time they got into your 22, they seem to come away with something.
And that's the thing. Every time you get in there, you want to come away with either 3, 5 or 7. And that's what we couldn't do yesterday. We had 2 very big chances, and I think I threw one straight into touch. And those could have swung the game. But physically, I think Quins were up for it. I think they were challenged last week based on their performance against Leicester. So they were up for the game. And we certainly didn't doubt the fact that they would come up and be up for it too. So
yeah, Lawrence, you kind of felt like they really needed that, Quins, especially after last week.
Well, I just think, they were played off the park last week at the breakdown particularly. And interestingly, their young flankers, Jack Kenningham and Will Evans, probably had a good hard look at themselves, probably feeling a bit miserable for most of the week. And then they did pretty much the same job at the weekend. I think all the penalties that Sale gave away, nearly all of them were at the breakdown. So it's fascinating. When you play one of the teams at the top, and Sale will be very much having these conversations this week because they go to Saracens next week. When you get beaten in the Premiership, you expect a reaction the following week. It doesn't always work, but you expect a reaction. And I think that's what you got from Quins. I think if you look to the way that their type 5 tackled yesterday, that was probably, Marcus Smith and Danny Kerr and those guys get the headlines. That always happens. But the Joe Marlers, the type 5, the work rate of the type 5 in terms of when Sale did break through, that's where you really see the difference. And I'm sure Sale will have some honest conversations tomorrow. And, maybe with a few less mistakes, they'll be able to put Saracens under some serious pressure.
Okay, shall we decide who the outstanding player of the weekend was then?
Outstanding. Supported by Fuller's London Pride.
Steve, let's go to you first. Who are you going for?
Well, he was only on the pitch for 20 minutes, but we've already spoken about him. And I have to say, he showed a massive pair of kahunas to kick that. His first kick of the season. He actually used to write a column for the Evening Standard as well, so I'm slightly biased.
Well, you wrote the column for him, Steve, let's be honest.
He actually, so he was his 338th appearance, I think. So he's equalled the record for Saracens, but I'm going to give it to Alex Good.
It's usually me that does the romantic stuff like that, not you, but I'll give it to you.
He held his nerve superbly. I mean, and I know there's this whole, please respect the kicker, don't boo, la-di-da-di-da. But for me, you know, it's the passion, it's the emotion of the game. If the fans want to show how they feel, then fine. But he held his nerve together and he kicked the goal. So fair play to him.
Okay, Rob, who are you going for?
I was on the receiving end of him, so I'd say Marcus Smith.
And Lawrence?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to go for one of the kickers. I mean, Adam Hastings, amazing drop goal. I mean, that's incredible, isn't it, what he did? Alex Good. But actually, I think we've got to mark the fact that Bath have won their first game. And it's a desperately demoralising place when you're losing every single week. And I think one player that stood out heads and shoulders for the whole season has been Tom Dunn, actually. Their hooker. He's again on the score sheet. I think he epitomises everything that's good about Bath. So Tom Dunn is my outstanding player of the week.
Okay, well, I was going to say Alex Good, and then I was going to say Marcus Smith, so I'm going to have to choose another one now. So I'm going to go. I'm going to go Itoje, just because he's returning from shoulder injury. I think he deserves a lot of credit for the scrum dominance. 19 tackles, I think he made in total during the game. So I'm just going to be different, basically, because you've nicked mine. So that's my outstanding player.
Rob? What's the longest drop goal you've ever kicked?
At sea level.
I've never hit one in game nowhere near as long. I reckon I'd do that 10 times out of 10. I won't kick it, honestly. I think if you had to do it 10 times out of 10, you probably wouldn't get it again. It's a massive kick that. And
it didn't look great, but it went over.
Hey, the score sheet says 3.
Doesn't have to be pretty, Steve. Right, let's take a look ahead to next weekend then. Make a few predictions. Rob, Friday night, Exeter Chiefs. They're going to be heading up the M5 to Gloucester. How are you calling it?
Exeter. I think Exeter will get a reaction from them.
Okay, Lawrence, Quins. They're going to be welcome neighbours London Irish on Saturday afternoon.
I think a big performance against Sale. That was such a big game for them. I think to be able to come off the back of that, they won it. They're back to playing well. I think Alex Dombrandt is probably likely to start against Irish on Saturday. I think he gives them a different dynamic he allows the rest of the back row to function a little bit better. That's no disrespect to Archie White. Irish, dangerous, very dangerous side, but I do feel that when you go away for international rugby for a few weeks, you really want to send off your international players and not have that kind of losing feeling hanging over the club. So I always found these games really important. If you're an international player, if you've lost your last club game, it sort of sits badly in your mind. You can't put it behind you. And equally, when the internationals go away, you don't want that hanging over you. So I think it's a big, big weekend of club rugby, and I think Quins will probably just have enough.
Score prediction, 62-all. Right, let's go. Steve, Northampton Saints, they're going to be hosting Bristol Bears.
Yeah, Northampton need a win, don't they? I mean, they've now played 7, won 3, lost 4. So, they've got to start capitalising on those opportunities, I think, that they get to score the points. Bristol not played this week. I'm going to go Northampton on that one.
Okay, and Lawrence, I'm not going to ask you, Rob. Lawrence, 2 teams at the top of the table. They're going to be battling it out. Sale, Saracens at the Stonex. It should be good. Who are you going for?
Yeah, I mean, everything tells you the way Saracens are playing, it's Saracens, but, and it's a tough place to play. I don't know but you've got Alex Sanderson that, obviously knows the club inside out. He'll always have a few little tricks up his sleeve. The reaction, I've been in many a dressing room where we've lost a game, and, you take that personally. Collectively, you go and regroup. And I think you've just got to have a very clear and understanding of the way you want to play against Saracens. If you try and go there with a bit of mixed things in your head, Saracens are playing differently as well. But there's no reason why the team that we don't expect to win can go and win. So I might just come up with Sale and be controversial. No one would have given Harlequins a hope of winning up at AJ Bell, and they did it. So why can't Sale go down there and win?
Rob, quick question. Because Saracens are playing they are playing a different way, or they're experimenting a different way this season. It seems to be working for them for the most part. So, or for all the parts, because they haven't lost a game yet. But in terms of your approach, will your approach be different playing them this season than seasons gone by?
I wouldn't say we changed too much. It's a lot of the focus is on ourselves and what we can impose on a team. I wouldn't say we changed too much according to what they've been doing this season as opposed to last. We'd probably just be fielding a little less contestable kicks.
It's interesting because you've definitely added a few layers onto your attacking game this year, and there was a lot of mistakes yesterday, but that's because you were probably trying to force the offload, whereas in seasons gone by we wouldn't have seen Sale do that. They would have kicked the ball, they would have maybe just hit it up. So Saracens, even though they've won every game, they could have easily, they made some mistakes early on in some games. They could have easily been punished, particularly against Gloucester. And maybe I just felt yesterday, had you started that game and some of those offloads had stuck, it could have easily been a very different score. So there's generally more attack-minded this season, isn't it, right across the board?
Yeah, that's funny.
I was going to say, sorry, Lawrence mentioned it already as well. The other thing is that with the international players going, you're losing 6 players, is it? I mean, how does that affect your mindset going into these games? Because I guess in a way now, for over the next 4 weeks, we've got games that the results will probably be not what we expected because some of the key players are missing.
I guess so. You could say the same for Sarries. They'll lose a lot. Tom and Flaherty always says this is the best time of the season for him because this is when he gets to play, because everyone's out, all the big dogs are gone. I think if you look at what we lose and what we the people who come in for them, I wouldn't say it's much of a muchness, but I mean, I don't think we lose a lot in terms of personnel. So people will get some opportunity, which is always exciting, and people will try and put their hands up. And this is a big time for the club to kind of build that experience.
Okay, Rob, we're going to let you go in a minute, but you're going to get tackled now by Lawrence Dallaglio.
Tackled. Supported by Fuller's London Pride.
Yeah, Rob, thank you for joining us. Some quickfire questions, just so our listeners can get a real good understanding of what's going on. What's your full name?
Robert James Dupree.
James. Nothing terribly embarrassing about that. That's good. Favourite takeaway?
Pizza.
And do you have a celebrity crush?
Scarlett Johansson.
Good crush. Last movie you watched?
Gold with Matthew McConaughey.
And what do you have the day after a game for breakfast? Full English?
I do love a full English, but this morning I had banana bread.
Good man. Nickname?
Rob or Bob.
Oh, perfect. What's the best advice you've been given, would you say? It doesn't have to be rugby-wise, but it normally is.
It was around my first quick 5 questions, but it's a little bit of a story. It was like my first game kind of in the senior mix, and our kicking coaches kind of came in over and said, do the basics really well. Anything on top of that is a bonus. So always kind of stuck with me.
Good advice. Who is the most famous person, would you say, in your phone address book?
Probably Sia Khaleesi. He's transcended the game at the minute, hasn't he?
He has indeed. Maybe just drop him a text. Any danger of more than one cap, please? get me off the one cap.
Yeah, that would be good.
Who would play you in a film of your life?
I think Owen Wilson.
Good choice. Who's the funniest person you know, or the funniest person in the Sale dressing room?
Sam James.
Are you a dog or a cat person?
Dog.
And when you have to get up and sing, as they love a little sing song in Manchester, what's your karaoke song?
Oh.
You're cringing now because you know that you've obviously delivered a couple of bad ones, have you?
No. I forget the name. Let me just check on my Spotify. Sorry.
No. That's all right. I mean, if you've forgotten the name, what chance are on the words?
No, it's what is that song? Is it something rap?
Bohemian Rhapsody?
No, it's not that. Rapper's Paradise or Rapper's Paradise or whatever. Rapper's Delight. That's the one. Sorry.
That's a good choice. That.
So is our music lady. She knows them all.
I love karaoke.
What's your favourite TV show?
Friends.
And which superhero would you most like to be?
Batman.
Ideal dinner party guest?
Sam James. Yeah, good man, Sam James.
Who would you say is your best rugby player of all time, or your sporting idol rugby player growing up?
I've got 2, Dan Carter and Johnny Wilkinson. I think they're neck and neck.
Fantastic. And what is your proudest Premiership moment so far in your time here in the UK?
Probably my 50th cap hitting the winner against Wasps.
What a lovely way to finish. Well done.
Yeah, they were good answers, Rob. Good answers. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, Rob, thank you for being tackled and for being our guest on this podcast. It's been a real pleasure to chat to you. All the very best against Saracens. See if you can make our prediction be the right one, because at the moment what we tend to do is our guest tends to be from the losing team, so we really want a guest from the winning team at the moment. That would be fantastic, but good luck with that match and for the rest of the season. Well, that's all for this episode of the Rugby Podcast, supported by Fuller's London Pride. Don't forget you can watch the full extended video podcast of today's episode at londonpridebeer.co.uk.
Yes, and if you've enjoyed listening, please make sure you're following us so you don't miss out on any future episodes. We'll be back next week, but for now, from Lauren, Steve and myself, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
The Evening Standard Rugby Podcast with Lawrence Dallaglio, supported by Fuller's London Pride, official beer of Premiership Rugby. Support with pride.